Hi, this is Lance Dalleck, Professor of Exercise and Sports Science at Western Colorado University and also member of the ACE Scientific Advisory Panel. In this month's issue of Certified, I've written an article on exercise considerations for winter. And at the time of writing this, much of the United States had just experienced, a brutal cold spell with record low temperatures and wind chills, as well as really historic snowfalls in the Great Lake regions and the Northeast. And so I felt it was timely to write an article on this topic. And I wanted to provide some context or some background for why I'm interested in this. Going back to my first academic position in 2005, at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, I did a community exercise program, and over the first couple years of doing that program, what I noticed is that clients in that program during the winter months became less adherent to attending and participating in the physical activity programming of this community exercise program. And as I started to reach out to individuals, they gave me a variety of reasons of why they weren't coming, and it really stemmed to do with the weather, and that got me thinking that I needed to include specific programming in the winter time as part of our overall community exercise program. And so some of the tips, some of the 7 suggestions I've written about in the article really go back to my experience in my first academic position. And in my video today, I really want to touch on just 2 of the points that I made in the article and provide a little bit of context, a little bit more depth, and why they're important. The first is balance. At the time, again, going back to 2005, we didn't have a specific balance component in that program. And balance wasn't quite as mainstream back then as it is now. And so, again, sharing or talking with the participants in the program, and they were afraid of slipping and falling and going outside, and that's why they weren't attending. And so that got me really motivated to include balance-specific programming as part of our overall community exercise program. And I've shared some of the same exercises that we did 15, 20 years ago in this article. And the other thing that I've recommended, and there's a lot of options, is slip-resistant footwear. And I provided a link in the article where you as health and exercise professionals can go to find out what might be the best selection for your specific clients. And then the second consideration I wanted to talk a little bit more about in the video is there's really an increased risk of cardiac events in the winter time. And there's, this stems from a couple different things. The physiological responses to inspiring cold air can lead to increases in blood pressure. It can lead to vasoconstriction of our coronary arteries, and it can make our blood more prone to clot. And so this, in conjunction with some of the common activities outdoors in winter, can really create this unfortunate setting for a mismatch between heart oxygen supply and demand. And one of the most common activities that this occurs in is with snow shoveling. And snow shoveling for millions and millions of Americans is a common outdoor wintertime activity. When it snows, that snow needs to be removed. And so the physiology is one problem. The second problem is that shoveling snow is actually a really high-intensity activity. One of my favorite researchers is a gentleman by the name of Barry Franklin. And going back to the 80s and 90s, Dr. Franklin did a really impressive study where he compared the physiological responses to snow shoveling to a maximal exercise test. And what was found was that peak heart rate, peak blood pressure responses during snow shoveling of especially wet snow can approach the maximal heart rate and blood pressure levels achieved during a graded exercise test. So most clients probably don't think when they go out to shovel snow that they're going to be doing a graded exercise test. And so I've tried to be very prescriptive and provide some important tips for clients of mine in our program here at Western. When they go out and they're going to shovel snow, there's really three things that I suggest. One is that they warm up. It is going to be vigorous intensity exercise, or maybe even higher. So I suggest indoors they do 5 to 10 minutes of stretching, some calisthenics, just walking around the house to warm up. The second is I suggest that they purchase a smaller shovel and talk about how much snow are they going to remove with each swipe or lift of the shovel, so that it's not too much. And then the third thing to be mindful of is, and I mentioned this a little bit already, is inspired cold air can cause vasoconstriction of the coronary arteries. And so if it's too cold out, and there's not a specific magic number in the literature, but probably around 5 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, we need to start talking about something to cover the face, a buff, some kind of mask, and so then the inspired air is going to already be warm and potentially less risk of causing some of those deleterious physiological responses. So I give those recommendations to clients when they're shoveling snow during the winter months, because it is a common outdoor activity. So there's lots more in the article. I really enjoyed this one, and I think you as readers will really enjoy it. And as always, good luck with your clients, and stay warm.